listeners. Today we're going to be reading an article that teaches us a really important lesson. Language matters. We're going to read the article and answer some questions about it. On Wednesday, be sure to come to class with an answer to your essential question, the whole reason you're reading this article. That question is, are slaves considered immigrants? Be sure to be prepared to discuss your answer in class. Texas textbook calling slaves immigrants to be changed after mom's complaint. Educational publisher McGraw-Hill said it will revise and reprint a geography textbook that refers to African slaves in America as immigrants and workers, after a complaint by the mother of a Texas high school freshman, reports KTRK-TV. Ronnie Dean Burren of Pearland, Texas, posted on Facebook a picture of a section of the textbook World Geography that her son Kobe Burren had sent to her via a text message. The picture shows a graphic about immigration patterns with the text, "The African slave trade between the 1500s and 1800s brought millions of workers from Africa to the southern United States to work on agricultural plantations." The Atlantic slave trade brought millions of workers. Notice the nuanced language there. Dean Burren wrote, "Workers implies wages." Yes? Question number 1. What problem is pointed out by the student's mother? You might start out your answer to this question by saying something like, the problem pointed out by the student's mother is that. Did you finish your question number 1 by saying something like this? The problem pointed out by the student's mother is that by using the word workers to describe the slaves, the textbook is not acknowledging that these humans were unpaid and forced to leave their home in order to perform free labor. Dean Burren followed the post with a video that shows her discussing the textbook. Immigrants. Yeah, that word matters, she says. She then talks about another passage on the next page of the book. These are some of other sections that talk about the pattern of immigration. This section here in particular talks about English and European peoples, many of whom came as indentured servants to work for little or no pay. So they say that about English and European people, but there is no mention of Africans working as slaves or being slaves. It just says we were workers. This isn't the first time that textbooks being used in Texas have come under fire for the way they depict racial issues. Earlier this year, social studies textbooks approved for use in the state were criticized for downplaying slavery as a cause of the Civil War and failing to adequately address racial segregation in the Jim Crow era. McGraw-Hill said in a Facebook post last week that the book will be changed. We conducted a close review of the content and agree that our language in that caption did not adequately convey that Africans were both forced into migration and to labor against their will as slaves, the post read. We believe we can do better. To communicate these facts more clearly, we will update this caption to describe the arrival of African slaves in the U.S. as a forced migration and emphasize that their work was done as slave labor. McGraw-Hill said the book's digital version will be changed immediately, and the changes will be reflected in the book's next print run. Dean Burren reacted to McGraw-Hill's statement with an ecstatic follow-up on Facebook. "This is change, people. This is why your voices matter. You did this," she wrote. "And to my sweet boy, my only son, my main man, Kobe Burren, look at your power, son." She ended the post with the hashtags Black Boys Matter and Black Lives Matter. Question number 2. What is a more appropriate term for African slaves besides immigrant? Did you pick B? B is incorrect because workers is the entire reason that the student's mother was upset in the first place, because she said that workers implies wages, which was not true. Did you pick A? A is incorrect because the term indentured servants was used to describe European and English people, but it was not used to describe the African slaves. Did you pick C? Snaps to all my friends who picked C. You are 100% correct. The more appropriate term to describe slaves is forced migrants, since they did not leave their homes of their own choice, but rather were forced to migrate to the United States. Question number 3. Why do you think the language in her son's textbook mattered so much to the student's mother? You might start your answer by saying something like, the language in a textbook matters because... The language in a textbook matters because language has a powerful effect on the way people see and understand history. If we don't correctly explain that slaves were transported to the United States by force to perform unpaid labor unwillingly, we are not correctly explaining the history of our country. You might also add something like this. In addition, by covering up shameful parts of our country's history, we are not allowing our society to repair the damage or heal.